Okay, here's what I want to do. So let me kind of take you through the blow by blow of what took place. I think it was over the weekend. It actually started on Friday, right? And I saw this series of tweets, and one was from John Feinstein. Now, for the record, I think John Feinstein is not a good, but a great author. And, I could say he's a great sports author, but that would not be doing his writing justice. It's more, he's just a great author. Probably my favorite. And I'm in my office right now, and I'm looking at 5 of his books, and I know I probably have more if I keep looking. I mean, they're so good, right? Season on the Brink is probably the one he's most known for, I think. Next Man Up. Season on the Brink was about the Indiana Hoosiers falling around Bob Knight. Last Dance is a good one. Next Man Up. There's so many good ones. Anyway, his tweet was in regards to something Doug Williams. Doug Williams, of course, works for the Washington Redskins. Doug Williams won a Super Bowl as a quarterback. He was a high first-round draft pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the late 70s. Had a 10-win season early on. Wasn't a great pro quarterback. Lost his job, and then eventually got an opportunity because of injury in Washington, and he was one of 3 different quarterbacks that Joe Gibbs won a Super Bowl with. He's also been a vocal critic of his own quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, in terms of his work ethic. So I think Doug Williams has been a pretty honest salesman. Doug Williams apparently told John Feinstein that he believes that had Deshaun Watson been white or had Mitch Trubisky been black, the drafting for that year, Trubisky went 2nd overall. In the 10th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs slid up to take Pat Mahomes, and at 12, the Texans took Watson. If they hadn't been black and Trubisky hadn't been white, then the drafting would have been different. I replied in a tweet, that's something along the lines of that's idiotic argument, because of it's not the 40 years ago transgressions when black quarterbacks were, and again, this is widely considered to be the feelings of some in the league at the time. Not mine, not anybody in my family, but again, and I wasn't 40 years ago, I wasn't old enough, 4 years old, that the black quarterback couldn't play, the position well in the National Football League. And slowly but surely, like so many stereotypes from the 60s and 70s and even early 80s, we've started to realize those are just dumb, right? Just dumb. And I don't believe that race played any sort of factor in the drafting of Mitch Trubisky. Now, it's not just because I don't think race plays a factor in drafting quarterbacks right now. I don't. But it's also because, look, I've done a lot of things in my career. One of the things I was really lucky to do was sideline for an NFL game with Big Fox. It was the Dolphins, this was the game where Ryan Tannehill got hurt when we're at practice, or he removed himself from practice on a Friday, and Brock Osweiler came in, going against the at the time undefeated Chicago Bears, led by Mitch Trubisky. And so when you're going to do an NFL game, you talk with members of the front office, scouts, anybody from the Bears that's around. You're at the we stay at their hotel bar, having conversations, and I asked them, like, why did you draft Mitch Trubisky ahead of Deshaun Watson, ahead of Pat Mahomes? I was a fan of both of them, more so than Trubisky, and I didn't watch Trubisky a ton in college at Carolina. I know he only played really his senior year. And in my discussions, never once was there any hint of, racism, right? Because in truth, like, if you really want to get down to it, Trubisky's style is one that was typically reserved for the stereotypical African-American quarterback 30 years ago, right? Great athlete, didn't start a bunch, not sure of his ability to break down a defense, could throw it a mile, but was he accurate? That was kind of some of the scouting report on him. And so when they went through, like, hey, here's what we liked about Mitch, and we love Mitch. There was never, and why didn't you like Mahomes? Well, there was this and that. Why didn't you like Watson? We all went to his pro day. So the progress of it, that was my tweet out, which set the Twitter world on fire. There was a lot of back and forth that day. Deshaun Watson came out and said the Bears, he never talked to the Bears. Rich Eisen's show actually tweeted out a tweet and a video of Deshaun Watson saying he did have a phone call with the Bears. The Bears actually sent their entire front office, entire coaching staff to his pro day, but did not have dinner with him, meaning whatever they saw or whoever they talked to, they decided he wasn't one of their guys. And they vacillated between Deshaun Watson, who apparently John Fox, the coach at the time, wanted, and Ryan Pace wanted Trubisky. Ryan Pace won out. John Fox only coached one more year, and Trubisky's their guy. Now they're trying to figure out do they like him or Foles. So it reinvigorated this question about, does race play a factor in the selecting of a quarterback in the National Football League? Dan Le Batard is a super talented guy. He has a radio show on another network. He chose to respond. Take a listen.
Now, when a race conversation makes an appearance and a black person is filing a complaint about something, this is beyond idiotic, is exactly the wrong response for any kind of conversation like that. Not because you're not allowed to disagree. You are allowed to disagree, but once you've started a conversation with this is beyond idiotic, you're not interested at all in hearing what anyone else has to say about anything. So Doug Gottlieb continues, and the people who object to this always look like Doug Gottlieb. The people who say this is beyond idiotic always look like Doug Gottlieb. Now, you might want to accuse me of racism here, but I haven't seen someone like Deshaun Watson come into the NFL and be Deshaun Watson. I haven't seen it before. A college quarterback who's great moving around and can confuse Nick Saban, that's not something I had seen have that kind of success in the NFL before. And that's where race ends up playing a factor, and it's not beyond idiotic to suggest that any of us would be guilty of any kind of biases or places where we have, a blind spot on this stuff. But the problem with this is people like Doug Gottlieb, perpetually Stugotz, are more sensitive to the idea that they're being called racist than they are to actual racism. Like, Doug Gottlieb doesn't know what it's like to experience racism. Doug Gottlieb doesn't know what it's like to live a life where Deshaun Watson is going to be questioned. And this is race playing a factor. It's not racism. I don't have to prove intent to you. I don't have to prove to you that Bill Polian isn't a racist. I'm just telling you, why do you think that happened? That Bill Polian, 6-time executive of the year, saw Lamar Jackson and thought he was a wide receiver. Could it possibly be because his prototype was Peyton Manning? His prototype looked like Peyton Manning. Why can't that possibly be? Why is that a conversation that's beyond idiotic?
Well, there's a couple things here. If you want to take the personal part, okay, I've never experienced racism, that's not true. I played and excelled in a sport in which I was the exception. I wasn't quick. I was deceptively quick, right? If I went through my vitals as a player and why I didn't make it, okay, all of the stereotypes for the white coach's son are the complete opposite of me. Yes, I had a high basketball IQ, okay, but I was a great athlete. I couldn't shoot. Which is the opposite of the coach's son, who is the best shooter and is unathletic. I had a 37.5-inch vertical leap. I made myself into a tremendous athlete. I didn't make it because of my lack of athleticism. And when you're white in basketball, you actually absorb a ton of negative stereotypes. You just do. The idea that racism doesn't exist against white people in basketball is at minimum uninformed and at most laughable. But even that, I don't think I didn't make it because I was white. I didn't make it because I couldn't shoot. That's it, period. Because nobody cares. The idea of people caring. I understand that we want to look at a snapshot of something that happens in Georgia and think that sort of racism pervades professional sports. Tony Romo said it best. Football is a meritocracy. Meritocracy. You can't, if you're doing the political thing where you're throwing out half this white quarterback, Tony Romo is a tremendous quarterback. Probably a Hall of Famer, might not get into the Hall of Fame. He was undrafted. Now, is he of Hispanic descent? Yes, but generally, Tony Romo is seen as a white guy. Okay? He went undrafted. Dak Prescott went in the fourth round. Did he go in the fourth round because he was black, or did he go in the fourth round because he was a runner in college that struggled with accuracy and was probably a late second, early third rounder, but then had a DUI? Am I missing something? Did we just not have a draft which Kyler Murray was drafted number 1 overall? Was he drafted number 1 because he was black? No, he drafted number 1 overall because despite the fact that he's only 5'10", he's got a crazy arm and crazy like spidey senses as a football player. The idea that a general manager or even Bill Polian, Bill Polian likes Peyton Manning, not because he was white, because he's a great quarterback. And he'd seen what it takes to play quarterback in the NFL. And if Dan Le Batard wants to say we haven't seen a quarterback do this, yes, we have. We saw Mike Vick. We saw Vince Young. Right? We've seen other quarterbacks. We've seen Johnny Manziel do that to Saban. And Johnny Manziel's style, it didn't work in the NFL. You can't run around back there and just throw it up and make plays. The problem with if you want to get to Lamar Jackson, there was all kinds of issues that no one seems to be reporting. They all get caught. You get caught up in the race baiting of, it's got to be because he's black. No, it's because he was wildly inaccurate. I'm a Lamar Jackson fan. Did you watch him play Mississippi State in the bowl game? I did. He sucked. And then nobody could get him on the phone for a workout. He didn't want to run and show people how fast he was. He didn't want to throw at the combine. And historically, we have seen slash players. Cordell Stewart. And oh yeah, by the way, all this hubbub about one Charger scout said, are you going to run with the wide receivers? And it was kind of laughingly joke, although they just wanted to see him run because he's a freak. Suddenly became, I got to move to wide receiver because Bill Polian's like, look, I'd consider it. Because long-term, it hasn't worked. It just hasn't. That's my thing with Lamar, is it hasn't worked. Whether it's Tebow or Vince Young or RG3, it doesn't matter color of skin. These guys that are primarily runners that struggle to throw. And all we had was the data of watching him play in college. And anytime they played a good defense with maybe when they were trailing Clemson big on the road and he single-handedly brought him back. That is the exception against a very good Clemson team on the road. I watched the game. He could be wildly inaccurate. Go back and watch. Like Lamar Jackson throws a great deep ball, and then a guy will be wide open over the middle, and he'll just airmail it. And he has improved, and they have changed the offense. But we've actually never seen a guy run the ball this much in the NFL. Why? Because they get hurt. You know, they didn't miss on Teddy Bridgewater. The reason Teddy Bridgewater slipped in the draft because everybody said he was fragile. And guess what happened? His knee fell off. Geno Smith didn't fall in the draft because he was black. He fell in the draft because he was an arrogant, you-know-what, that couldn't get along with people and wouldn't accept and wasn't a hard worker. And guess what? That all was accurate, and that's what led to him losing his starting job in the NFL. We're just as critical of Johnny Manziel. Like, what are we doing here? It's the most important position in the sport. We're hypercritical of everyone who tries to get those jobs. And, I mean, Baker Mayfield got ripped for running for the cops because he was having a beer at the University of Arkansas in the offseason at a party and for grabbing his junk. And people like my colleague, and all last season when he played poorly. Dude, NFL GMs, and if you don't want to accept this, you just don't want to deal with reality. NFL GMs sit down and go, hey, are we good enough at the quarterback position? If not, we got to fix it. You know why? Because if we don't fix the quarterback position, you're out of a job, you're out of a job, you're out of a job. And most importantly, I'm out of a job. Nobody cares about race. They don't. Do you know how I know? Because talk to them. Pick up the phone, get out of your studio, get out of the Clevelander, and actually call somebody in the league and say, hey, has it ever come up in any conversation? Well, subconsciously? Bull crap, subconsciously. Russell Wilson didn't go in the third round because he was black. Russell Wilson went in the third round because he was tiny. And he was inaccurate his first 3 years before he transferred to Wisconsin. And there was some talk of, would he play baseball? Remember, that's why NC State showed him the door, because he wouldn't stop playing baseball. Played an accurate portrayal of it. Almost half the league's quarterbacks are black. Nobody's trying, this is not 40 years ago. Look, 40 years ago, people used to think mixed race marriages were somehow taboo. 40 years ago, homosexuality was taboo. Dude, times have changed. The most decorated American athlete, maybe of the 20th century, right? Had a sex change and a reality show. I mean, like, we're in a completely different era. And you're talking about past issues with the NFL at the quarterback position, which were in it. When Warren Moon came out, he should have been in the NFL immediately. He went to the CFL, tore it up, and then went to the NFL and tore it up and is a Hall of Famer. But like, I don't know if, like, do you really think that you got, like, Ryan Pace is sitting there going, you know, I like Deshaun Watson. Well, I like Pat Mahomes a lot, but he's black, so I'm going to take Mitch Trubisky. If the Bears aren't good this year, if they don't fix the quarterback position, Ryan Pace gets fired. Like, that's the reality of it. And the reason that people passed on Mahomes was, you know, there were some missed meetings, some personal stuff, you know, let's just say college stuff, some things in his background. They felt like, and I talked to several people in the Bears organization, they're like, look, higher ceiling than Mitch. He can just do some things that are freaky. But, you know, Texas Tech didn't win when he was there. And it's not all because of the defense. It's because he was loosey-goosey with his footwork. He was loosey-goosey with his prep. He just played, just balled out. And coming from that air raid system, there haven't been guys that are success stories. 9 other teams missed. They did. But they've missed on white quarterbacks. They missed on black quarterbacks. And if you think for one second that an NFL GM that has worked his entire professional life to get that opportunity, because that's what all these guys have done. You work your entire professional life to get the opportunity to draft a quarterback. Do you think for one second they go, wait, he's black? I don't know. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, look, I like Jameis Winston, okay? But this idea, we hold African-American quarterbacks to a higher standard. No, we don't. We hold all quarterbacks to the same standard. Jameis Winston has gotten more opportunities through more dumbass things than anybody to ever play the position. Why? Because he's got talent. And he's actually a very smart football player. He just makes dumb decisions in life and occasionally dumb decisions on the football field. I mean, we all know about the issues that hounded Jameis Winston in college. Fair or unfair, he was accused of things that he was not proven to be guilty of. And then he had another issue in the NFL. And yet he was still starting quarterback through for 5,000 yards. He doesn't have a job now as a starter. He's in New Orleans on image rehab, not because of any other reason. Then he threw 30 interceptions last year. That's it. So you can sit here and tell me racism. You don't know. You're white. You don't know what racism's like. One, you're wrong. I do know what it's like. And two, I also pay attention to the NFL, talk to people in the NFL, and they all will tell you, like, dude, I don't care. I don't care if you're straight or gay, married or single, black or white, Hispanic, Asian, don't care. Can you stand in front of 45 other men on a game day, 52 other men on a game week? Can you stand in front of them and lead them? Can you be accountable? Can you be prepared? Can you win us a game? 1st and 10, 80 yards to go. We need a touchdown. Can they all look you in your eye and believe in you and then go accomplish the task? That's it. That's what the position is about. And yes, 30, 40 years ago, we had people with that used that were, I don't know if they're all racist or whatever, but there was negative stereotypes toward African-American quarterbacks. And if you think that in an NFL front office who's looking around the rest of the league, that still happens, I can't help you. You're stuck in the past. I'm not. I deal with the reality of today. And the reality of you win, you keep your job. Jamarcus Russell went number 1 overall. And he didn't fail because he was African American. He failed because he was lazy and he was drinking that scissor up. Mike Vick was the most explosive player at the position we'd ever seen. He got hurt. He was unattentive. He had the off the field stuff. He went to jail. He came back. He's an incredible story and become an incredible man. Kyler Murray went number 1 overall. What are we doing? It's like we're completely diminishing everything that has happened because there was racism in the past. And that's just, I don't believe to be accurate in the league currently.